Hello, my name is Rick McNary, and I am the founder of Shop Kansas Farms, a Facebook group. On April 28th, my wife and I were watching a Hallmark movie in the evening. We'd just finished a dinner of great beef we'd purchased from Katie and Craig Carruthers of KCK Farms in Anthony, Kansas. My wife mentioned that she had been at the grocery stores that day and the meat counter was empty. I thought, well, that's odd. We've just had some of the best beef I've ever had. So I wondered how I could connect my friends and family with people like Katie and Craig. So I jumped on my laptop and got on Facebook and tried to figure out what a group was. And I thought, well, I'll form a group because it can be public and people can invite friends and neighbors. So I started it at 6:58 in the evening. By 10 o'clock that night, there were 400 members. 24 hours later, there were 5,000 members, and now there's more than 145,000 members who have joined this incredible movement of Shop Kansas Farms. And I named it what it is. I want people to shop Kansas Farms. So here's what we learned along the way. The Kansas farmers calm public fears. So I've spent the last 20 years engaged in international and domestic hunger relief and development, the Give a Man a Fish and Teach a Man to Fish programs. So I understand in the context of hunger, or sometimes called food insecurity, the fear that gets baked into people when they don't know if they're going to eat that day. And so what happened when the meat counters were empty is that there was a new type of a food insecurity in that typically hungry people can't afford food. But at this time, people who could afford food just couldn't buy it because it wasn't available. And what I love most is that they discovered that Kansas farmers were still doing what they do, calming public fears and saying, we're still farming, we've got your food for you. And so as consumers discovered farmers and that the meat and the produce they needed might be as close as a half a mile away, as opposed to the average calorie traveling 1,500 miles to reach our plate. And so what happened is an online regional food system was being created. So I've spent some time in the last 10 years trying to understand what a regional food system is. It's three parts, really. There's the production part, the processing, and the distribution. So on a grand, incredibly complex national and international scale, our food system is incredible, but yet it failed us. There was a chink. And so what happened in the filling that vacuum is these regional food systems established themselves because people found the farmers to buy from. What I like best about what I've seen happen is that a local and regional community is being built around agriculture. Because I work in the hunger space and I know the issues and the concerns, and I know that agricultural community has to increase production by 75% in the next 30 years to feed 9 billion people. What I've also learned in agriculture is that they understand community better than anyone else because they know it's community based on survival, not on convenience. And so the disconnect between the farmers and the public and people living in urban areas, 2% of America are farmers. So that means 98% of the rest of us, and I'm not a farmer, aren't connected to agriculture. And suddenly, because of this pandemic and people buying from local farmers, that collapse between the rural and urban happened immediately and in a way that is sustainable. Here's another really important part is that rural revitalization is taking place. In rural communities across the nation, the challenge to find a way to make a living and not have to drive an hour and a half just to have a job. Suddenly, people were being able to order from the farmers online. We have a number of stories, and I'll talk about some of the economic impact later of people who have made significant revenue increases, farmers who have grown their revenue by 500% or more because of Shop Kansas Farms connecting them to new consumers. So if you think about it, of the 145,000 members we have, probably 144,000 are members. Here's another really fascinating thing that's happened is that education's happening. People are paying attention to how to buy things and how things are grown. And so there are these conversations real time between farmers and ranchers and the public, people who live in the cities who have no idea. So one of the more popular things is people buying a quarter of beef or a side of beef or a full beef. And that complex process of how you buy it from the farmer, how it goes to the processing plant, how you get your cuts determined, of all the things that are discussed, that's probably one of the most confusing ones and the one that brings up most questions and conversations. But it's really been fascinating because people in the agricultural industry have been trying to get farmers to communicate to the public. And suddenly, the public in real time are asking really solid questions about how does this work? Another thing that we see is that this is a movement. So there's been a lot of push from the top down in the last decade to connect farmers to consumers in the concept of direct consumer sales or in food hubs and food systems. So it's either an agency, a government agency, or a nonprofit that's trying to get that focus from the top down. However, what happened with Shop Kansas Farm is really a fearful public because they didn't know if they were going to get their food at their grocery store anymore. Went searching and found the farmers. And so it's a grassroots. And any kind of movement that is really powerful always starts out as a grassroots movement because that's a matter of public will. It's not somebody being told to do something. Shop Kansas Farms is not a clever marketing concept. It just happened to be something at the right time in the right place. To tap into what we know is that people want to buy local. And although that's been something talked about, suddenly it became reality and became a need for people to look local. A number of comments that we've seen through this have indicated that people didn't realize that that farmer they drove by, his farm, his orchard, his or her cattle industry or cattle ranch every day, didn't realize they could actually go buy food from them. They could go buy their meat and vegetables. That type of shopping local, it's kind of shopping local on steroids now. In the whole shop local, there's always this question of what is determined by local. A lot of food chains will get on it and say, yeah, this is locally grown. Well, local might mean 1,000 miles away. But what we've done with Shop Kansas Farms is local has to be grown in Kansas. And hopefully right next door to you. Another thing that's happened is that the Farming Voice has a new communication platform. I'd like to be clear that I'm not a farmer. I do not have the courage, nor the faith, nor the intelligence to be one. They're an amazing group of people who have to be masters of many disciplines. Architects and engineers and global policy experts and real estate experts and financial experts and entrepreneurs. But I began to write about them 4 years ago when I went to an FFA convention in Louisville, Kentucky. And I didn't know much about FFA, but I met 65,000 of my new heroes, of bright, brilliant, blue-jacketed, beautiful young people who I think we ought to just go ahead and turn the world over to tomorrow. But there was a comment that was made numerous times at the convention that farmers need to tell their story better. And so on my way home, I called up Kansas Farm Bureau and said, I'd like to write as an outsider looking in. So I've been writing for 4 years for Kansas Farm Bureau in their Kansas Living magazine. Another thing we've learned is it's hard to stay focused on the purpose. Our purpose was to connect people to the wonderful farm and ranch families of Kansas so they can buy their food directly from them. Well, with the Facebook group, people could post initially whatever they wanted. Being in a public membership, and I had one rule. Facebook said you need at least one rule, so my rule was one I learned from a kindergarten teacher that's my niece, who said, be kind. And if you're not, you're going to go to timeout. So that was kind of my basic rule. But within the first 24 hours to 48 hours, people were taking it in very different directions. So we came up with some more rules. I was given a wonderful group of admins and moderators, all volunteers that have helped me behind the scenes with this to make sure we stay focused on what we call prospering and protecting farmers. The question we often get is, will this continue after the COVID crisis? Because, yes, it will, because of the power of storytelling. Corporations spend millions of dollars trying to craft a narrative around their product. Because in essence, they're trying to build an emotional connection between the consumer and the thing that they have to sell. All of your advertising is wrapped up into making you feel really special about what you have to buy or what you've purchased. What's happened now is that there's 145,000 stories out there with all these people who have jumped on, and now they know their farmer and they know their food and where it comes from. And so this opportunity for people to build relationships where they truly know their food and know their farmer and can go to their farm or drive by the farm and do the pickup, especially during the pandemic, or at least see, that's just where the farm lives. That type of relationship has been wonderful. So, where do we go now, and what have we done since it started? One of the first demands was for people to say, I want a map. I want to know where these people are located, our farms and ranchers. Well, Facebook wouldn't really allow for a good Google map on there. Facebook and Google aren't the best of friends. So we knew we had to create a website. My wife and I actually formed an LLC, Shop Kansas Farm LLC. And, we love farmers and we want to help prosper farmers ourselves. And so we've invested in having it programmed and developed and building a business directory with a map. So if you have a farm or ranch you need to have listed, it's all free. Please go to shopkansasfarms.com and you can add a listing for free if you know a farmer that needs to be on there. But by all means, go and shop, because it's really a solid database that we've built that we can build on into the future. Currently, we have 350 farms. We'd like to see more. One of the things that we did was try to get a little glimpse of the economic impact. And although this isn't incredibly scientific, we sent out a survey, 30 people responded. There are incredible stories that come along with this. But the survey of businesses, and this was just after 1 week of findings, found that some of them have had significant increases in their revenue. We're going to do a more detailed, deep dive into the economic impact. But again, currently, everything is being done by volunteers, and we all have jobs and lives and children and families, and being able to invest ourselves full-time into this is a really difficult thing. But there are other ways we intend to prosper farmers in the future. One question we get is, can farmers actually upload their products on our website and sell them through Shop Kansas Farms? And we are working on that right now. We think that's a great way to help farmers make money. Another exciting thing that we're going to do in 2021, and kind of depending on how the pandemic plays out and where we are with being able to get people together, is to have a expo and trade show. And at that expo, we'll have some different components. One, farmers and rancher-led workshops for agribusiness entrepreneurs. If you have any kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, you're recognizing in this food system there are a variety of ways to start a business. And I've learned through the years that the best people that teach business are the ones that lay awake at night wondering if their businesses are going to make it. Not somebody just teaching theory. So they'll be taught by real farmers and ranchers. Also, consumer workshops on how to buy. Added value workshops. How do you take something from a farmer? Maybe you don't live on a farm, but you can take what they grow and turn into jams or jellies or spices. And then helping farmers with marketing and sales. And then, of course, being able to buy the products that the farmers have there for sale at that event. So we put out some initial feelers by that and done some surveys and had incredible responses. We intend to set those up per region. I'm not exactly sure where we'll start and what region we will, but we will be able to engage people in these expos and trade shows. Please go to shopkansasfarms.com and put your farm on there, a ranch, And by all means, shop Kansas Farms.